The heat in rural Ghana was a physical weight, a blanket of humidity that settled over the farming town of 4,000 souls and refused to lift. I was there working for a non-profit, living in a modest concrete guest house on a guarded compound. It was a world stripped of modern distractions. Few homes had electricity, and even fewer had running water. Life moved to the rhythm of the sun and the seasons. My roommate and I were foreigners in a land of ancient traditions. We did our best to adapt. We navigated red dust roads and crowded markets, but there was always the feeling of being outsiders looking in. The town was undeveloped, poor by Western standards, but rich in a currency we didn't understand: belief. The days were exhausting, filled with the logistics of aid work, but it was the nights that truly wore us down. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the vibrant bustle of the market faded, replaced by a darkness that felt absolute. Without streetlights or neon signs, the jungle crept closer to our doorstep. We were surrounded by the bush, dense, tangled, and alive with secrets the locals whispered about, wide-eyed and afraid. We thought we were there to build infrastructure, but we would soon learn the foundation of this town wasn't built on soil. It was built on the spiritual. The nights were never silent, and we were never truly alone. The locals called it juju. To outsiders, it's just a word for West African witchcraft. But in that town, it was a tangible force. Not folklore, not superstition. As real as the rain and the dust. Several times a week, deep in the dead of night, the witching hour would arrive. It didn't come with a clock chime. It came with drums. Deep in the bush, hidden beneath the canopy, the local coven gathered. Their drums were heavy and rhythmic. Chanting voices rose with them, casting spells into the humid air. The sound vibrated in your chest, primal, unnerving. But the town didn't surrender quietly. In response, parishioners from the Anglican and Catholic churches climbed a nearby hill to wage a spiritual counterattack. Their own drums answered. Hymns and prayers rose into the night, a sonic shield against the black magic spilling from the forest. I lay awake beneath my mosquito net, sweating, trapped in the crossfire. Dark rhythms, desperate hymns. They clashed in the air outside my window. It was an invisible war, fought nightly for the soul of the town, and it left me exhausted and on edge. It was the rainy season, a time when the sky bruised purple and unleashed torrents that turned red earth into slick mud. One night, the storm was ferocious. Thunder rattled the louvered windows. The wind howled through the eaves like a wounded animal. Then, predictably, the power failed. The lights died instantly. Blackness swallowed the compound. We sighed, reached for flashlights, lit candles. The flames flickered violently, stretching long warped shadows across the concrete walls. But something felt different. The air grew heavy, charged. A pressure pressed against my ears, static, wrong, unnatural. For the first time since arriving, I felt truly vulnerable. We retreated to our beds. We read by headlamp light, pretending everything was normal. My bed sat in the corner. My acoustic guitar rested nearby on its stand. I couldn't focus. Every few minutes, I swept my flashlight across the room. Corners, ceiling, shadows. I felt watched. Eventually, exhaustion won. I turned off my light. Rain drummed against the metal roof, and I drifted into a shallow, uneasy sleep. I woke hours later. The storm had passed. Silence hung thick in the air. Then, the drums returned. I stepped outside briefly, hearing chanting, real voices, rising from the bush. I wrought back inside, locked the door, pulled the sheets to my chin. I focused on my breathing, and this as sleep began to claim me, the room spoke. What happened next? You raised any doubt that I was awake. My eyes flew open. The sound came from the corner of the room, my guitar. It wasn't a strum. It sounded like something sharp, a fingernail or a claw hooked beneath a steel string. It dragged the string away from the fretboard. Metal screamed. The pitch climbed higher and higher. The wood groaned. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Then, twang! The string snapped back violently. The note rang, discordant, wrong, before fading into silence. Something had just played my guitar. I clutched my flashlight, but couldn't bring myself to turn it on. I was terrified of what the beam might reveal. Time stretched. Nothing moved. Silence returned. My mind searched for reason. A dream, stress, exhaustion. I believed it. My body relaxed. I turned over. Scream! Twang! No build-up, no warning. This time the note was lower, thick and guttural, vibrating through the air. I bolted upright, flashlight blazing. "Who's there?" I choked. The beam swept the room, the corner, the guitar. Still, silent, no intruder, nothing. Sleep never came. I watched the guitar until dawn. When morning light finally spilled through the louvers, I approached it. I expected broken strings. There were none. But when I plucked them, the low E and the high E were completely slack, detuned by octaves. At breakfast, my roommate whispered, "You heard it too." A colleague dismissed it as temperature or wind. I nodded, but I knew better. Temperature doesn't choose two strings. It doesn't pull them inches off the neck. It doesn't play them. I don't know what entered our room during the witching hour, but I know one thing. I wasn't the one playing the guitar that night.